I think there's a lot to learn from European-style healthcare delivery systems. Totally universal, totally free at the point of use, but there are different countries that do this in different ways, and we shouldn't be afraid from learning from France, for example, that does charge for GP appointments, or the Netherlands that has a lot more provision using companies that aren't owned by the state. I think there's a lot that we should be able to discuss in the NHS that sometimes the conversation feels very sort of shut down immediately. This is going against this sort of early principle.
What about this?
So this, I think it's worth trialling. I'm not sure about every single appointment. I think Yasmin was very, very right in terms of charging for missed appointments, because that costs the NHS hundreds of millions of pounds a year. And it's very clear that there is a problem in terms of bunging up the system with people doing frivolous appointments and then missing them and feeling like it doesn't matter. It does matter. It costs money. It hurts the NHS, and so it's right to try and find solutions to try and encourage people to.
So you would charge, right?
For missed appointments, certainly.
Yeah.
I think it's worth trialling.
Yeah, well, Matthew, what about you? You've got the casting vote here.
Well, thank you. Well, actually, there's a consensus developing. I think Yasmin makes an extremely good point that if you organise an appointment and you don't have the courtesy to tell the doctor that you're not going to make it, then there ought to be a penalty. And I think that would focus minds and free up the doctor's timetable to see people who genuinely need to see them. I think my only fear, I agree with Tom completely that we need to learn from other healthcare systems. I would like to see much more open-mindedness in the way we think about the NHS. Sometimes it seems to me like a religious dogma that can't really be discussed in an evidence-based way.
International comparisons in the last 5 years have said this is the most cost-effective and best service in the world, I think, or in the Western world.
Yes, there was the Commonwealth Fund study.
You don't need to fix something that's working.
You can still improve it.
So there's different measurements here. So the Commonwealth Fund study put it as the best in the world overall for deliverance, and that measured a lot of things. But in terms of keeping people alive, it measured in the bottom third. And so there's a lot that we can learn to improve specific things. For example, cancer care in the Netherlands is much better. And this isn't about money, it's about systems and delivery. I mean, if we were to look at how prescriptions work currently, people who need to get a lot of prescriptions can get a lower charge or that waived. And I think that would be something that would be involved in this system here. I mean, similar to how they do it in France, there are high-use people who are known to the system that it wouldn't apply so much to. But to get rid of the sort of erroneous appointments where people are just looking for company or people are missing it, treating the system poorly, not paying respect to the system, I think that can actually really help.
And yes, to me, it is like a religion.
Yeah. I think that's kind of damaging when in other countries you'd sort of expect people who can afford to do so to pay, to take pressure off the system. Whereas here there's almost a social expectation that if you can afford, you shouldn't.
You know,
and you should pile on pressure into the system.
In America,
that's a wrong way
in America,
I think it's worth exploring these ideas. And let's not forget, I think there was a big discussion that we had earlier about what if people on lower incomes couldn't pay? Well, with prescriptions, if you're on lower incomes, you can get that waived.
And I think we become more creative. And crucially, we become more resilient. Young people become more resilient when they're exposed to different opinions, and they can therefore form more robust and complex opinions.
Do you agree with this, Tom, as the very young person here?
I mean, totally, absolutely. And I think there's so much in contemporary politics that relates with this as well. You get people, for example, who live in London who might never have met someone who voted a different way to them in the referendum. It's so healthy to have a diverse.
Would you ever have a very left-wing girlfriend or boyfriend?
Yeah, no, I can totally. I can.
Would you though? Would you be able to?
I think so.
I think
it's.
I mean,
you
engagement.
need to be able to discuss stuff.
I know from doing programmes that the best engagement that you get from the audience is when they hear something they disagree with.
Yeah.
People who disagree with everything you say, Yasmin, love watching you. Yeah. They do because they don't want to hear just their own views.
Yeah. And that thing you said about, you know, politics is becoming very tribal. I listened to a debate on Brexit. Sorry to bring up the B word so early in the piece.
It is an early
and somebody came up with an interesting opinion, and people were considering it. Then somebody said, "Hang on a second. Are you a Brexiteer or a Remainer?" In other words, I'm only going to take your opinion seriously if you're part of my ideological tribe. That is when democracy shuts down, if we can't listen and assess on the basis of evidence rather than people's identity.
And I really worry about my generation, particularly people who are perhaps in university right now. where you're getting a sort of closing off of ideas or different people coming to campuses. When you get that sort of no platforming, that's really damaging and really worrying for the state of debate and democracy.
They don't want no deal, that's clear.
Yes.
They want to avoid it.
Absolutely, nobody should want
They
to
do
move.
have to think, if we push Boris Johnson too hard, we're going to give him something that doesn't go through the House of Commons.
Well, good, because
Isn't that right?
I think
Good,
we need
good.
more thought.
Well, no, this is extraordinary. I think we should stop viewing the European Union as sort of a benevolent actor in this. This is a negotiation between two sides.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean that the European Union is all that is good and true and holy
No,
in
but
this
they're
world
not-
and we're
they're
some
not
sort of
the-
irritant. It means this is a negotiation between two sides.
Sorry,
Both have to
they're
give and
not
take.
obsessed with Boris Johnson. They're not in the business of propping up Boris Johnson. They're doing what they need to do.
Well, Boris
So this
Johnson's
is
not
what-
in the business of
No,
propping
No,
up
this
the
is
EU
this is
either.
in this particular.
I think it's really interesting how the particular problems seem to be in Eastern European countries. It seems to be that this country very often does herself down far too much about the issue. And if we were to compare the sort of racism, and obviously any sort of racist incident is too much, but to compare the trajectory this country's been on over the last 20, 30 years, I think is something, there's a positive story to tell there. And it's something that we should be looking at more, seeing how much this sort of stuff has come down and comparing ourselves to some of those European countries where there is still really insidious racism. And not just Eastern European countries, in Italy, in France, this sort of stuff goes on far more.
Sure,
than
but
in
should
the
they
UK.
walk off is the question.
I think they have a right to.
Yeah.
I do. I don't...
Because beating them, I mean, the other alternative is you stay on the pitch and you beat them 10-0.
It does seem that the current protocol of sort of asking the audience very politely again and again, sort of over this three-step process to stop being racist, it seems like that is too weak. And perhaps there's a medium ground to be found here between an absolute walkout that ruins it for everyone and those sort of weak rules that currently are in place.
Tom, tell us about the pay for Extinction Rebellion protesters.
Yeah, this is extraordinary. We're seeing these hundreds of activists, and really, we've seen big protests.
I'm with them. I'm
We've
with
seen
them,
big
Tom.
protests before in this city, but this is actually a relatively small amount of people who've been paid to be there, £400 a week in some cases, to block roads, to stop people going about their businesses, to stand outside hospitals and stop traffic. I mean, this is really quite extreme stuff, and they're being paid to do so.
Who pays them?
Well, this is the question. I think they should be a lot more open and honest about their donors.
Well, yes, so the Express says Extinction Rebellion give them effectively £400 max expenses to come in London and disrupt stuff, and they want a massive tax inquiry into them and everything else. Of course, you like them.
I love them. I think
Do you
it's
think they should
time.
pay tax?
Absolutely. It's like the suffragette moment. Everybody was really irritated and annoyed with them. Change happens in this way. And if we're calling for funding, actually, I would ask, you come from the Guido Fawkes Madrasa for young, handsome right-wingers. Who funds you?
Who
What
funds
have
you?
you
Can
not-
you can
what-
go on? You can go on Guido
That's-
Fawkes.
look, come on, what do you mean,
100%
Jeremy,
advertising
here?
funded. You can look at
Ages.
any page on Guido Fawkes, any advert you see there. That's who funds us.
That
It's
the
totally
adverts
transparent.
fund it.
Yeah,
I don't
All right, hang on.
know.
I want-
100%.
Well,
Go on.
the problem we have today is a very different one of young people not giving it a go and being terribly demotivated and destroyed when they mess up.
Tom.
Isn't there a flip side of this? If you have sort of this everyone's a winner culture, if you try and say, oh, you're all brilliant and you should all try everything, surely that almost goes against the point that you brought up in the first place, that we should be taught that failing is okay. So wouldn't it be better to sort of keep those structures in place, saying, yes, some people are good at this, some people are bad at it, but hey, it's okay to not come first in the race. It's okay to not win a medal or not win a prize. Surely that's a sort of healthier culture to foster.
But do you want to, Tom, in the mail, you've got the super classroom that Storm mentioned.
Yes, this is a classroom of 63 children. It's more like a lecture hall than a classroom, but I'm not sure it's being the norm. The Department of Education has been very clear to push back in this article right at the end. They say the average class size at primary level is 27.1 pupils. I'm not sure how you get 0.1 of a pupil, but I suppose over an average that makes sense. And 21.7 pupils in secondary school. So this isn't the norm, but I do think it is interesting to have more sort of innovation and diversity in how education is delivered. And I can certainly see some situations where larger classrooms, sort of lecture-style environments, make sense. But, I mean, my mum's a teacher and she's got a class of about 30 people and it's tough. So I don't think a class of...
Yeah.
I don't think a class of 63 is going to... If that becomes the norm, that will be very damaging.
But they all have a laptop and it's quite high-tech, isn't it?
Yeah, this basically looks like one of my lecture
Yes, it really
halls,
looks like university, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's in, where is it again? It's near Exeter, isn't it? Broadgate.
Yeah, Exeter. Yeah.
Okay, maybe
But
they
isn't
just said
this
he's
great,
busy.
though? Whenever we hear a story about automatic cars or driverless things and everything, the
good.
stories we tend to hear are the crashes and the disasters. And so good news stories like this are probably far more common than the occasional crash.
And the lad
it
in
does
this,
give you-
yeah, sorry, I was going to say the 14-year-old in this was so badly hurt. His skull had come away, part of his skull, and his brain was visible, and he was about to die. So it really did save his life. Yeah.
Well, apparently, 1 in 3 wine drinkers won't pay any more than £5 for a bottle of wine, which, I mean, I'm in two minds about. There was a time when I'd be consistently buying the £3 wine, but then there's this £5.50 bottle of wine that I really do enjoy, and so I'm technically not in that category anymore. But I think there's a big difference between the sort of £3 and the £5.50. I'm not sure if there's a bigger difference between when you get up to 10 and 15 and whatever. But 1 in 3 wine drinkers saying that £5 is enough.
Look, we've got a glass of £5 wine here, and we've got a glass of £20 wine here. Okay.
I feel a competition.
And I'm serious. £20 wine. Yes, there really is such a thing. I didn't know. So, should we give this a go? Should we go for... I think they're labelled A and B. Do you want to go A first? Let's try this.
Are you just holding on to the stem?
Yeah.
How fabulous of you.
Yeah. So that's A. Okay.
Interesting.
I don't want to say what I think, because I don't want to... Anyone got a view on A?
Let's not corrupt it. Let's all
Okay.
I'm going to have a bit of water in between, actually. It's
Is it? Yeah. Oh, yeah, we take
Pura,
it
right?
seriously.
Sophistication levels
This is,
in this
yeah,
studio are high
proper
today.
science.
What do you call it, the thing that the real experts spit? Is it called a spittoon?
I think I know.
A spittoon.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. We've got to do this simultaneously. If you think A is the £20 glass, put your hand up now.
Oh, it's a
us.
split decision.
So Yasmin and I think...
Well, I didn't taste.
OK. So you think... And I've got to find my notes now, because somewhere I've got it written down. And I've actually forgotten which way around it is. OK, the answer is you're quite right.
So you
So
can
there
tell
is
the
a
Oh,
difference.
Jeremy, you got
Do you
that.
know what's really weird about it is that I read it the wrong way round. I didn't really want to vote, but I thought, yeah, B is definitely the expensive one, because it had gone into my brain the wrong way around. So that's really interesting. I wouldn't have necessarily known. They're not £15 apart, are they?
I thought that they was a lot better. I mean, having said, I don't drink a huge amount of.
A is 20. So
I do like it. I do like
Hang
it.
on, let's just...
So it takes the edge off at the end of the. But you went for A.
Yeah, I did. It's a lot smoother.
A
It's
smoother,
yeah,
a better body,
definitely.
slightly better nose.
How pretentious
But
they get.
the bouquet,
How
the bouquet,
pretentious it all
the
becomes.
bouquet was good. I'm being
Yeah,
honest.
slightly less sharp.
I went B, but then the thing is, that's fantastic for me, because what it means is I can save loads of money on wine.
Yeah.
I mean, it is having a good ability to taste wine is an absolute curse.